So this is how I check my Yamaha Waverunner for leaks. Put it at the end of the driveway where it drops off, nose up as high as I can, put it on top of a ladder. Eventually the water weight of this is going to get so severe that it's going to want to pop this thing back on the trailer, so use caution on that. Fill it up with water and watch where the leaks come out of the backside. Usually the transom itself, the reverse cables, trim cables, those are the suspect areas. And sometimes it is this, I don't know if I might be able to get a shot at it. There's a mid-shaft bearing coupler right there at the bottom center of your video with the teeth that engage forward and backward. Sometimes that is an area that leaks as well. And so this is how we find them. So throughout this process, I'll just keep an eye back here on if I have a drip coming out of somewhere suspect. So right there, I've already got one drip coming right there, so I'll investigate where that's coming from with a light. And then this little drip on the end, that was coming out when I initially tilted this back before adding water. That was just residual water left in the pipe. So hopefully we'll be able to find some of these pinhole leaks in here and seal them all up. So when this weight comes off of the nose of the trailer, I've also got this thing blocked. Wheel chocks and blocked so the trailer cannot fall down even further. All right, super common spot for them to leak is right here on these corners, and you'll find those once that water hits that seal right there. So it'll come up through this this inspection port right here. So what you do is you fill this sucker up and you keep this at a really steep angle until that water gets right up to this, right close to those edges right there underneath this gasket, and that'll show you where all your rear end leaks are at, so you can get in there and seal those up. What that ends up being is underneath this, at some point it got hit on the back end and it ends up cracking the case, the top of this ski. The top form comes over and it meets at a lip with the bottom section. It's a clamshell design, a two-piece clamshell, and there's this adhesive in there. It's like it's almost like construction adhesive, but over time when it gets bumped or cracked, oops, shut my hose off here, hang on. So somewhat dried up that area, so you get a better look here, see if we can isolate the source of this leak. So I'm pretty confident that this leak, let's see here, so I can kind of see behind the rub rail over here, and there is not a single drop of moisture through this line here. So it's definitely coming from the starboard side of this connection. It actually looks like these rivets are broke. I'm going to pop that thing off. Let's see here if I can get my cell phone down inside there and actually better pinpoint exactly where that leak originates. Kind of tricky. Like there might be sorry, the camera's all over the place, but I believe it's coming from right behind this rivet here, or slightly off. So what I'll do is I'll take this whole area under here, cut out that seam of, you see that kind of yellow brownish goop there? So that's going to be our sealant, and somewhere in there, if you were to put pressure on this connect that where those are sealed together, you would see a fine hairline crack right there, but there's nowhere else across here that it's getting any water migration. So in what appears to be the spot, also you have a little coming off the tail right here, which I'm going to have to investigate further. I think in order to find that one, I'm going to have to tilt the ski up a little bit. You can see that on this plug appears to be just an ever so tiny little leak coming from the starboard plug on that side. So I'll pull that thing off and reseal reseal around there. I don't think it's coming from the actual plug. It looks like it's coming from the top actually and just dripping down. This one looks good. I'm going to dry this one off a little bit and see if that stops draining. Maybe that's just residual water. So even after drying it off, you can see in that upper left-hand corner it's starting to shine up a little bit. So I'll look back in a second, and I believe a couple seconds later we'll get a little drip out of there. I believe that left side might be cracked a little bit where that bolt goes through. Screw, whatever those are, I can't remember. And that top side, it looks like that might be cracked, which is super common on these things, so that should be an easy remedy. And then the last leak, let's find out where this constant steady drip is coming from on the bottom of the ride plate. It's not coming from over the top, obviously, of the ride plate. So that has to be from the pump shoe area, I believe. I think I found it. Back inside here, if that's the only leak spot. Let's see the drip. Come on, focus. Focus. Hocus pocus, focus. There it is. That looks like it's about a 1-for-1 drip. For every time that drips, the other one drips. So that should be the spot right there. So it's like, I'll call it out here on the, you watch the bottom drip and I'll call out the top as it's dripping. Drip, 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 drip. So pretty consistently, just after this one drips, then that one drips on pace with it. So that's got to be the spot, and we can follow that drip up, especially with a cell phone cam and some good flash lighting. If I can zoom out, there we go. So I can see the water trail right there. Goes up, and just as we expected, I think we called that out at the beginning of this video. Right there appears to be the spot that it's leaking out from on the bottom left side of the pump shoe itself. So you look in there, make sure it's coming from the actual shoe and not from the seal on the shoe there. Just above, right in the center of the screen, is the pry tab right there. So it's coming from right around that pry tab. I would suspect just above it. Don't see anything coming from around the cable through hull at all. Alright, so yeah, in fact it is coming from the bottom of that that reverse cable there. You can see it. I went in there with a towel and dried that. Come on, focus, baby. Dried that bottom left corner of that white through hull there off. God, that's not going to focus back there when I zoom, is it? And then it immediately wets again. So it's draining off of that bottom corner and draining down around that aluminum casing down there. Hey, how you doing?
Hi. How are you?
Oh, you know. So anyway, and lastly, just to confirm, yeah, it's dripping out of this side, the starboard side, the left side of the starboard side plug, which got a crack in there, so you get a little bit of a leak there. Not on this side. You know what? Let's see if this is a leak coming out of this seal, or if that is just water that had migrated up across the top. Let's check those for leaks. Those are common as well. So I'll dry those off. See how chalky they get. almost powdered and chalky. So those tend to develop leaks over time. Okay, also on the starboard side here, after drying that one off, I actually saw that drip right there where it migrated from. So it's right on about the 6:30 to 7 o'clock position. Actually, you see moisture around that ring there, so this will need to come out and be fixed. I actually have some replacements for those I'll put in. These are pretty bad, and that'll get sealed off from the inside. Basically, you just come in here, you remove that white elbow, and then you have to re-silicone that whole elbow up over there. And of course, some areas that we can't tell from this test if they're leaking, you could have a leak around this seal right here. So check this guy to make sure it's not loose. On your SUV, I believe it's just going to have this one here. This is a converted 4-stroke SUV, so you need 2 pistons on there, and this is where I located mine, so I know that mine are sealed up and tight for sure. Possibly could have a leak coming through the bolt connection, the bolt connection that goes through here. Could also have any number of leaks coming around from your rub rail elsewhere. You know, it's impossible to find all of those, but when you're on plane, a lot of that front end is out of the water, so at least you're not picking up water like you are through this back end. The back end, since it sits so low in the water, it likes to suck in water, like kind of like a Venturi effect. The water hits that lip on these clamshells and just drives it into that little crack there. Will take on a lot more water than you think. And one more spot, it is the port side. I mean, it's putting out a drip there, and I do not believe it's coming from the inside. But the only way to rule that out is I shove this towel up inside and dried off that area. So I'll come back in a few more minutes and check to see if we have a drip forming on that one. Although it's very likely going to come out anyway and be replaced. And then also now I'm picking up a drip from here on the port side through this lip. So it does appear that this lip is compromised somehow to the left of here, and I'm not sure. It's dry over here, but it's wet at the corner. So I will remove this entire rub rail section here, and give it a good repair job just to get rid of those final leaks. Final pinhole leak, I believe, confirmed. It is in fact leaking from this port side right there. You can see the drip forming also. So each of those, very, very common that those things leak actually. So here's something that we haven't been able to test that will also leak on you. These sponsons have bolts that go through. This is the access panel to get to those, but they will develop leak spots that I've encountered before. But I think in order to, I don't want to have to pull this motor in order to find one. So what I'm thinking is, if I park this ski 90 degrees off on this same slope and maybe jack up that other side of the trailer as much as possible, I'll be able to put enough water into there to hit that area and see if I've got water coming out. Those are quite the pain in the backside to seal up, to be honest. They might be better suited for just removing that inspection cover. Try to get your hands in there with some brake cleaner and spray out that area. Wipe it off with a towel inside as good as you can, and then maybe spray something in there like a Rust-Oleum makes a waterproofing spray that might be enough just to stop slow migrating water coming in from those bolt heads. Either that, and I think that's going to be the only realistic way of getting back at those, to be honest. There's no bolts underneath here, so you got to take them out from the inside, and I've done that before, it's a pain. Alternatively, you could just do a really good job of cleaning all this area out around here on the outside, and then seal up this outside and make basically a barrier. I think I am actually going to do that. But make sure you get that really clean. Drop a bead of maybe a bead of 5200 in there is what I'm going to do, and use it like caulk. You know, squish it down into that recess there really well so you get good adhesion, and then just kind of run your finger along there to smooth it out. I think that'll suffice, you know.